Welcome to IELTS Whisper, your guide to mastering IELTS speaking. Let's explore a sample answer for today's cue card.
Describe an interesting traditional story. You should say what the story is about, when or how you knew it, who told you the story, and explain how you felt when you first heard it.
One of the most interesting traditional stories I've heard is Cinderella, which is popular across the world in different versions. The story is about a young girl who loses her mother and is mistreated by her stepmother and stepsisters. Despite being kind and hardworking, she is forced to live like a servant in her own home. One day, a royal ball is announced, and with the help of her fairy godmother, Cinderella gets a magical dress and a carriage to attend. She impresses the prince but has to leave before midnight, when the magic ends. In her rush, she loses a glass slipper, which eventually helps the prince find her and change her life forever. I first came across the story when I was a child through a picture book my parents gave me. Later, I watched the Disney movie adaptation, which made it even more enchanting. Over the years, I realized that this story exists in many cultures with different names and slightly different details, which shows how universal the idea is. The very first time, it was my father who narrated the story to me before bedtime. He wasn't a dramatic storyteller like my grandmother, but he simplified it in a way that made me feel curious and excited. Later, my teachers also used this story in class to talk about kindness, patience, and the idea of justice. When I first heard the story, I was amazed by the magical elements. The pumpkin turning into a carriage, the glass slipper, and the fairy godmother. As a child, it felt like stepping into a fantasy world. As I grew older, I understood the deeper message. No matter how difficult life seems, kindness and resilience can eventually lead to happiness. What makes this story still relevant today is how people interpret it in modern contexts. For example, it's often seen as a symbol of hope and transformation, and in some versions, the focus is on empowerment rather than just waiting for a prince. That makes it not only a traditional fairy tale, but also a timeless lesson that people across the world can connect with. To conclude, Cinderella is not just an old fairy tale, but a timeless story that continues to inspire people of all ages. It shows that even when life feels unfair, qualities like kindness, patience, and inner strength eventually lead to positive outcomes. That's why, even today, whether in books, movies, or modern adaptations, this story remains one of the most loved and universal traditional tales in the world.
Here are some powerful words used in today's answer.